Yeah.
Rick Stojak, ladies and gentlemen.
Right on.
It's a little train beat for Rich Redmond.
Oh,
Right
dude.
on.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Everybody, welcome to Drummers Education Connection, man. We're here today with our friend Rich Redmond
What's up,
up
guys?
the Bay Area. We have Steinkohler, Chip Ritter down in San Diego, Rick Stojak, and I'm Bart Robley in the Ontario area. Thank you so much for checking it out and watching the show today. We're going to do as we always do and start off with a thing called Good Things. And I'm going to throw it to Jeremy to start off with. Jeremy, what do you got going on that's good, buddy?
I had a couple of great shows this past weekend. 2 different bands, 2 different gigs, really great crowds. Just, man, it makes me just grateful to be doing what I'm doing and just appreciating that connection between band, drummer, and audience, and all 3 of those things. It was great. And then the other good thing I have is that I just talked to my son, Evan, who's an amazing jazz piano player, and we are going to record an album together next summer. So I can't wait for that. It's going to be all his original compositions. And man, I'm super, super over the moon about that.
Right on. Fantastic. Yeah. Rick, what do you got going on, buddy?
Man, my good thing is the Beat Note app. Drum notation by Beat Note. We met Derek at PAS at the convention in November, and the developer Derek created the music notation app for drummers that easily on a remote device on your Apple product, on your iPad or your phone, you can transcribe a beat and then it'll play it back to you. It'll add a click. You can slow it down, and that app is just a game changer. It's helping out my students so much. And now BeatNote is a sponsor of Drummers Education Connection. So that's a fantastic thing.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Chip, what do you got, baby?
What else, man? The Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. So what else is there, man? What else is there, man? Things are going good, man. Things are going good. How about you, Rich? What's going on good with you?
Oh, man. I've lived in Nashville proper for 27 years, and I just recently moved to a little bit further out. Takes a little bit further to get here. Spring Hill, Tennessee was very charming and quaint and a little bit slower. And the houses are a little bit further apart, and the room next door is going to be probably, at this age, I'm getting my AARP literature in the mail. It's probably going to be the last studio I built. So I'm going to do it right. I'm taking my time. I'm going to build a room within a room and do the thing, and my buddy from Mitch with Audi Mute's going to come make it look sexy and make it sound sexy. So I just have my, my honeydew lists and my little things that I want to do here in quaint Spring Hill, Tennessee. It's very nice.
Right on.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Very cool. Well, Rich and I met. We had a mutual friend. We met a couple times at NAMM just in passing, right? Just, hi, how are you? But at PASIC, I walked into the Sabian party that Andy Zildjian hosted, and there's Rich. And so I just walked up and introduced myself again. I said, hi, Rich, we have a mutual friend, JJ Garcia. And he goes, JJ's the best thing in the world. The guy's awesome. And we just hit it off. We hung out all night and just got along great. And so it's been a little while in the works because that was back in November of 2024. But we got him on. And so he's here today. If you guys don't know Rich's resume, then you've been living under a rock. He's played with Jason Aldean. How many #1 hits do you have, Rich?
33.
Holy moly.
Wow.
God damn.
Congratulations.
Wow. Thanks. I mean, I don't write the songs. They play themselves. You know what I mean?
But we've done a ton of studio work with just the who's who down in Nashville. And also you're an educator. Is this correct?
Yeah, no, I think that I'm a product of music education. I champion music education. And, it really speaks to the community and the communal nature of drumming. I'm just happy I have a teacher's heart, and anybody's interested in teaching. All you have to do is be one step ahead of your students. And it's really going to help you because it shows you your why, your how, all the W's, and it'll help you increase your skill set. And it's just a great thing to do in humanity, is to share your knowledge.
Right.
Beautiful. Totally agree.
Now, one of the things that you and I talked about was you were talking about like your master classes and your almost like a camp. Talk to us a little bit about what you do there, how you do the camps and the master classes. And stuff
Yeah,
like
I've
that.
experimented with every possible, size, format, with educational events. And I recommend anybody that's listening, create your breakout weekends. It could be a half day, it could be a day, it could be 3 days. So for 4 years in Nashville and Los Angeles, I had my thing called my Drummers Weekend, and I would have, the Liberty DeVitos and the Mark Schulmans and the Kenny Aronoffs and the Thomas Langs would come out, and it was just kind of like over the top, a Hollywood kind of version of a drum camp. So the kids had like a meal package, and they stayed at a nice hotel, and they rode around in the limos, and they got to hang out with Liberty DeVito and break bread with Liberty DeVito. So it's more than just like, hey kid, here's the beat to this Billy Joel song. It was like they got to soak up the juju of Liberty DeVito. Nice. And so I did that for a while, and then I experimented with like one day events and like one-on-one training, small group master classes. And recently, you try, you fail, you see what works. In the last 2 years, I've come up with this thing called a Drumtensive. And it just seems to resonate with kids. It's so I've had 40 students fly in from around the world to Nashville. They come and at Drum Paradise. There's a room upstairs called the Drum Pad. It's beautiful, 2 drum sets you can eat off the floor. And we go in there. We do 3 hours in the morning. I take them to a nice lunch, like we're talking steak or sushi, and then we do 3 hours in the afternoon, and we address their questions and concerns. Of course, like it's like, hey, what's the beat on this song? We'll do that, but then we dive into the curriculum and we go right for their Achilles heels, and one of the things that I've noticed that has absolutely made a difference in my life, that it seems to be the Achilles heel for most players, hobbyists to semi-pros to pros, is just their ability to read music. And so, we get them, they do not leave that day without being able to read page 38 of the syncopation book. So we get them doing that where they can count it, where they can sing it. They could sing it. They could count it in double time. They know the sticking. So I get them some basic sticking rules. And so at the end of the day, they're just kind of like empowered to be their own teacher for the rest of their lives. Because I say, look, and once you learn how to read music, you could buy the drum styles of Stuart Copeland, the drum styles of John Bonham, that you could buy those books and it actually means something. And then you become your own teacher. So like I said, I've done it 40 times and I love it. And you really get to make a difference in someone's lives, and you make friends for life. Right. And I keep in touch with these people, and they're getting gigs, they're keeping gigs, they're going to college, they're graduating from college, they're moving to their favorite music city. So it's so refreshing and what's the word I'm looking for? It's satisfying, like a Snickers bar.
Right on.
But even more so. Yeah. That's great, man. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Hey, Rich, I got a question. I wanted to know if you don't mind, can you take us back to where it started for you? How did you become a drummer?
Yeah, the origin story, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Mm-hmm. A spider bit me.
Wait, was it Chick Webb? Oh, come on.
It was Zudi. It was Zudi Singleton, Cozy Cole. But no, I think, the drums choose us. I mean, it's like an oversaid thing, but it's just like in our DNA. It's man's first instrument. Those of us, we're all drawn to it, but some of us are more drawn to it where we get the bug. And, once you're bitten, it is a lifelong thing. You're reading Modern Drummer front to back, no matter what's going on in your life. And that was for me. I was 1976, hitting everything in sight. My dad said, hey, kid, you want to play the drums? He got me the Blue Sparkle snare drum, the Gladstone pad, the Joel Rothman book, the Encyclopedia of Rock and Roll Drumming, or was it the Bible of Rock and Roll Drumming? It was one of the two. I think Joel is hilarious. I got to have him on my podcast because he's still out there. He's got 140 books.
I get books from him in the mail all the time.
Yeah, he's a prolific marketer.
He's the most prolific drum author there is. He's got more drum books than anybody else, like everybody combined, pretty much.
Yeah, he'll take like a micro topic and turn it into an entire book, which is like, that's his thing. Just kind of like my thing is like, I love acronyms, and so I'm just going to write a bunch of books that have acronyms. So for me, I had the bug. My parents, God bless the supportive parents out there. God, especially in today's world, if there's some parents that are listening and your kid wants to do something other than play Fortnite or Death Scroll, they want to live in the real world. They want to climb trees. They want to play soccer. They want to play a musical instrument. Like, please support them 150%. So my parents did that for me. And, they sent me to college. They said, hey, kid, here, you get straight A's, we'll pay the bill, So I get this great, advanced education for almost nothing in the state of Texas in the 1990s. And then all the way from my parents, coming to see, us open up for every act on the planet with Jason Aldean. And every time my parents would come, they'd be at the end of the thrust, and I'd walk out there and I'd throw my parents my drumsticks because I'm like, this could be the last time. And that was 25 years ago, and they just keep coming to shows, so.
Sweet.
That's cool.
So you grew up in Texas?
Now, I'm originally from Connecticut. I don't know if you can hear. It's kind of like I have East Coast roots.
Yeah.
I think I have relatively non-regional diction if I wanted to be a newscaster. But then I went to Texas, and, Texas was great because what a music education culture. What other state in the United States has that kind of support for the arts? You would never think it. But it's truly, because the football money, that money trickles down. So you have marching bands, and you're like, hey, we got this 400-piece marching band, but these kids are also, they really want to play in the jazz band and the pep band. And then before you know it, they're back there and they're playing the Rite of Spring and wearing their tuxedo. And it was a great place for me. It was awesome.
Where did you go to school?
I got my 4-year degree and my teaching certificate in music education at Texas Tech University with Alan Shin, God rest his soul. Alan was an amazing educator, took that program, made it world class. And we lost him a few years back. He didn't quite make it to 70 years old, but man, did he squeeze 7 lifetimes of, cranking out really powerful students, educators and performers. And then I went to the University of North Texas and did the thing with Doc Stroman and Ron Fink and Henry Oxtell and Ed Soph and that whole thing, and so it was great. It was great.
Cool.
There's something in the water in Connecticut, being a fellow person from Connecticut. There was that community, there was that vibe, there was creative music in Wethersfield. The late great Bob Gatson owned one of the best drum shops I've ever been in, and it had that community and so many great drummers. Matt Starr is still there. And
love Matt, yeah.
Yeah, we've got Jim Royal. I know Dom was in Connecticut for a while in his earlier days, and so great musical heritage.
And you were smart. You said, I'm going to where the sun never stops shining.
That is true. I had to move to San Diego. There's no doubt.
Awesome.
How did you go from Texas to Tennessee? What was the thought?
Yes. So after I got my master's, I think I was the tender age of 25. And, a lot of people start having their quarter life crisis. Usually that's the age where, if you haven't been signed to a major label in a rock band, you're like, all right, I'll go work for dad, or I'll go get a real job. The music education thing was a backup plan, but, my career model was Greg Bissonette. We all know Greg and love Greg. Is like, it's like, hey, it's 4 years of your life. You study to be a band director. Doesn't mean you have to be one. You just have it in your back pocket. And when you're at school, you just play. And then you're so close in Denton, Texas to Dallas, Texas. And it had just such a robust music scene. It's like big bands. And there was still a jingle scene and killer top 40 bands where everyone was playing with tracks and loops and samplers and, steel drum bands. It was a vibrant culture. So I kind of moved into Dallas and played there for 2 years and thought to myself, what's it going to be? New York or LA? My colleagues were moving. Keith Carlock, was kicking around town, and he moved to New York and quickly got discovered at the 55 bar. So I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I had a little version of an electronic press kit, which is basically a cassette tape and a picture with me with my VO5 hot oil treatment mullet. And I said, hey, who out there knows of someone looking for a regional, national, or international touring drummer? And I had already been offered the Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus 2 times. And it was so appealing because at the time it was $50,000.
Wow.
Health benefits, paid vacation. You see the world via train tracks. Yeah. And I said, I want to get my degree. It's just another 2 years of my life. Let me finish it. And then I was like, do I really want to go pick, do the thing, the 3-ring, literally a 3-ring circus? I was like, no, it's going to be New York, LA. I really love smooth jazz. I love the weather in California. I was like, maybe I'll do this. I'll wear my Z Cavaricis and head out there and, look for the gig with Dave Kaz or something like that.
Yeah.
Happy jazz. And, anyways, I was shaking trees, and I got an audition with a gal named Trisha Yearwood. Then I got an audition with a gal named Dina Carter. and then a gal named Barbara Mandrell. And that was 3 weeks back to back that I was living in Dallas, learned the material, booked the flight, booked the hotel, got the rental car, went in, did my best to do the thing. All 3 groups of people were like, "Hey, kid, you sound great. Where do you live?" And I should have just lied and said, "I live right up the street." I said, "Well, I live in Dallas, Texas." And they're like, next. So I learned that if, you're going to do it, you got to go to the watering hole. And so I gave my band 2 weeks notice, and I moved to Nashville in February of 1997. Quickly re-met Jim Riley, who was the drummer with the Rascal Flatts for 20 years. Now he's an educator at Belmont University. We're still dear friends. Saw each other in D.C. And we just started kind of like throwing each other's name around, man. Like playing Lower Broadway for tips. And it was bad pay back then. Now it's actually highly coveted. You can go down to Lower Broadway. There's probably 70 nightclubs and bars. And if you're willing to blow out your rotator cuffs and destroy your meniscuses and just totally, get carpal tunnel, you can make about $100,000 a year playing down there. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And is this true? I've heard that now down on Lower Broadway, that you don't really have a set list. People just come in and they're like, "Okay, I want to hear this song," and bands will go, "Well, that is going to cost you this much in a tip." Is that true?
Yeah, some of that's going on. Yeah. When I go, you're going to see such a gigantic range of talent down there. There's some real hacking going on, and there's some really pristine, fine stuff. I like to tell people to go to Robert's Western World, which is like a snapshot in time. It's like 1950s music with the upright bass, and everyone's got the pearl snap shirts on, and it's a completely different repertoire. And then you walk 5 feet and you go into another nightclub, and there's a robo band on stage with in-ear monitors and clicks and tracks and iPads, and it's like, what you like to hear? But it's great. It's like I tell everybody, man, if you're trying to get your 10,000 hours, go down there and do it.
Hey, Rich, going back to how you got into Jason Aldean. When I first met you, you were in San Diego doing a clinic. And you had a story about just networking with your bass player and keyboard player, kind of like trying to get gigs and sessions as a team. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's funny. We've never had a keyboard player, but we do have a steel player, and we added him like 10 years into the journey. And everybody calls him the keyboard player, and he's like, no, it's a steel guitar. But no, the group we called ourselves the 3K. For started, I was the dream team. So I've always been a marketing guy. I was like, I think I had one too many adult beverages one day. I was like, we're the dream team. And then I threw that around. And then we became the 3 Kings. So we always just kind of marketed each other as a group. And there's a strength in numbers thing, where you've got a built-in band, you've got a bass player and you got a guitar player. We're all similar age. We all are coming from the same musical influences. We complement each other. We get along personally and professionally. And there's 3 of us. There's a 3-headed hydra that can go out and kind of like work the room and kind of like help each other pay the bills as an entity. And when you have these people that are coming from middle America, like North Dakota and Des Moines, and they had like maybe a family band, and now they want to get a record deal, to basically put a finely tuned rhythm section behind them where we just make them, it's just turnkey. And we did that for a long time. Of course, the musical economy in the 90s and the early aughts kind of supported that, where they would pay for a rehearsal space and you would rehearse the 6 songs, and then they would get you a catered lunch. And the next day they would have cartage to the venue, and you'd show up and you'd run the songs down, and then $500 and here's an open bar. It was, that does not exist anymore. So, like most things in the music business, you just kind of have to like jib and jab. Things are changing. Right. Major studios are closing. And that's why you guys all have beautiful drum sets all mic'd up behind you. And, if there's some teachers out there, teaching is just a wonderful way to affect people, obviously in a positive way, but to supplement your income, because you as a drummer that has tens of thousands of hours, you have something to say, you have something to pass on, and we can all put a dollar amount on that. It's like, I don't want to starve. I want to, I don't want to survive. I want to thrive. So, I have, that's one of the things that I always think about for like myself, kind of what you're saying. I'm in
I play a lot of gigs,
Wow.
but I also teach. And I think those two things go hand in hand so well, because most students, and I'm sure that you run into this all the time, a student wants to learn from somebody that's out there doing it. They
Yeah.
don't, not, well, this might happen to you someday, or this might happen. It's like, no, this has happened. It will happen. I got the scar right here from that. It's real life stuff. And that's invaluable, I think. I think that's invaluable.
Yeah. Well, you guys are all, highly, acclaimed, accomplished individuals, and we all have some concepts and different spins. We can all play the same drum set. We're all going to sound completely different.
Right.
We can all tackle the same subject. We're all going to come across at different angles, and that's the beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing about teaching.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of times, somebody in your demographic where you play with Jason Aldean, there's some generic questions I think that we all want to know. But I will ask this, because you were talking about songwriting. You joked, you said, "Oh, the songs play themselves. I don't write them." How does does Jason write the songs? Does he use, because I know there's a lot of songwriters in Nashville. That's a thing. Do you use outside songwriters? How's that work for you guys?
Yeah, Nashville is the songwriting capital of the world. I mean, as I speak right now, I'm feeling very left out because someone's writing a #1 song right now.
Well, they'll get you to play on it. If they really want it to be a #1 hit,
Let's hope. But so in the early days, Jason was a pro songwriter. He had a publishing deal, Warner Chappell Music, and usually a publishing deal works like this. He'd say, "Hey kid, some guy's got a cigar. He's like, I'm going to pay you this amount of money, and I need 12 songs this year." Like that, usually it means 12 songs written completely by you. So if you do the math, I wrote songs professionally for 5 years. I had a publishing deal. So every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I would get together with usually 2 other people in a room. So they make it a 3-way write, which means everybody in Nashville gets 33.3% of a song. So to turn in 12 songs for your salary at the end of the year, you have to write 36 songs. So that was very challenging to do, because I had a full-time touring schedule. So I was like writing songs on Sunday nights and stuff to try to meet my quota. But now with the greatest songwriters in the world living in Nashville, in the early days, Jason would be pitched like 800 songs, and his producer would have to filter through 800 songs to get it down to 50. And they would drive around listening to 50 songs, and they would try to get it down to 20. And out of the 20, we would cut 15, and then 10 would make the record. So it's this whole vetting process. And so a lot of recording artists, they're just very smart. They're just like, you know what? I have an established sonic identity now. People kind of know what I do. So these great songwriters that live here that have written 100 #1 songs, they go, "What do you think of this, kid?" And they give it to us, and then we take it into the studio on a Monday morning. And so we're going to be finishing up Jason's 13th record, second week of February, and we're going to do it in 2.5 days. Now, a day in the studio in Nashville is 10 to 1, lunch from 1 to 2, and then another session from 2 to 5. And in those 3-hour blocks, you're paid a certain rate by the union. And usually, different producers will work at a different rate. Some guys only like to record 1 song every 3 hours. That's if they have a bigger budget. We knock out 2 songs every 3 hours. So every 90 minutes, I'm being presented with a new song, and you have to hear it, kind of figure out what it needs, and you lay it down. And then we never go past 3 takes. We have never gone past 3 takes in the history of recording with him, because the songs are so good.
So you're just hearing the song for the first time in the studio?
Yes. Well, sometimes they'll send it to me like the night before, because as in the last decade, everyone is so loop crazy, and things have gotten, their musical influences have come from Atlanta, Miami, New York, LA, as everyone's coming to Nashville. So things have gotten more complicated, and sometimes producers get very attached to the demo. And so what I'll do is I'll transcribe the demo, including the loop, and then I'll put that, and that'll exist next to my number chart. So if I look at the national number chart, I could still communicate using the same language as all the guys on the tracking floor, but I've got an intense level of detail that if the producer says, really love that fill going into the second verse. Oh, you mean the spaz gadakatun? Yeah, right. I got it. It's all written out. So it's about executing, and Nashville really is a place where the head meets the heart, and art meets commerce, and it's just very, very, very fast.
Can you talk some more for those of our listeners unfamiliar with the Nashville number chart system and what that's about?
Yeah, our dear friend Jim Riley wrote the book on the subject. I love Jim. I'm an overly ambitious person, so I said I'm going to write a book on Nashville number charts. Jim beat me to the punch. I'm going to update the Steve Houghton Essential Styles book and then Jim beat me to the punch with 120 musical examples. And that stuff is going to be around forever. That stuff is so good. What is it? The Crash Course for Drum Set, or what's Jim's book? Anyway, it's got 120. You guys, if you got to use this book because it's got songo, when on the songo track, it's like dudes that pretty much only play songos, and on the metal track, it's just a bunch of dudes with like hair to their butt. Like, he used the musicians from each genre, so instead of just hiring a generic LA band that we can kind of get it done, he hired the guys. So anyways, Jim wrote the book on Nashville number system, and it's called Song Charting Made Easy, and it's probably the best 20 or 25 bucks you'll spend.
Chip, can you put the link in the chat for us?
I'm putting a link to the chat. I'm putting a link to the book in the chat.
Yes, thanks, Jim, because Jim's got 2 books there that will stand the test of time. I think they'll be educational standards for 20 years.
So can you tell, for those still curious, like explain the Nashville number system in most.
Okay. So the Nashville number system is like, they call country music 3 chords and the truth, right? So say in the key of C you have 1, 4, and 5. The 1 chord is C major, the 4 chord is F major, and the 5 chord is G major. 1, 4, 5, right? So in LA and New York, they will write letter charts. So they write C major, F major, G major. Now, if the singer comes in and wants to go up a whole step, they have to rewrite the chart. But with number charts, these guys transpose. They're so good. They just kind of think harmonically, like, okay, now D is the new 1 chord, and G is the new 4 chord, and A major is the new 5 chord. And they could do that quickly on the spot without thinking about it in all 12 keys. So as a drummer, we're watching the number charts. So we're listening to the harmony go by. So the 1 chord would get 4 beats in 4/4 time. The 4 chord would get 4 beats. And then so we have this thing called split bars. So if you have a little subtraction sign underneath the 4 and the 5, that's called a split bar, meaning that the 4 chord would get beats 1 and 2, and the 5 chord would get beats 3 and 4. And there's other little things you got to get used to, like accents. Like an accent in the Nashville number system is not really a classical accent, it's a push. So if you have a 4 chord with an accent into the 5 chord, that means you push on the Anna 2 into the 5 chord. So little things that are shorthands. So this whole system was created by the Jordanaires, and they were Elvis's background singers, and they were learning so much music. They had to come up with a system where they could quickly, be the background singers on recording sessions in the Grand Ole Opry. So this thing has stood the test of time, and I really think it should be taught at most colleges, because if you are at a church in the South, or if you're on and doing any kind of session work, including the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, you're going to get a number chart. Now, what is special about this and interesting for a drummer is that when we play cruise ships or off Broadway or jingles or recording or film scores, we're going to see through composed notation, which I think is an incredible skill set to have under your belt. The John Robinsons and the Russ Millers and the Greg Bissonets, they excel at this. But you're not really going to see that much in Nashville. You're going to see a number chart, and the drummer has to watch the numbers go by, play the style, play great time. But pretty much you have to know the history of popular music from the last 100 years and just be able to play in that style. No one's telling you what to play. It's like painting the Mona Lisa, right? Every day at 10 a.m. But for the most part, you got to paint in the lines. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. So just to be clear, that the charts that are not what most drummers are used to seeing in terms of drum charts. They don't have notation for drums written out. Nope. It's just the chord progressions with, arrangement stuff, anticipations, stops, specific fills maybe. Yeah. And then, so you're looking at it's more of like a roadmap.
Total roadmap. And if you know Western classical notation, what I do is if there's any information on the demo that I pick up, that I like kick drum patterns, builds, specific fills that I think the band or the producer might be into, I'll write that above the number. So now I'm loaded with all the information I need to try to get that first take. And in Nashville, if the drummer doesn't get the first take, then we're quickly determining, okay, so what's the ending going to be? Do we like the tempo? Do we want to do a 4 bars down at the top and then 4 bars up? Or are we just coming in, boom, 4 bars up? And, people are looking at all sorts of things like time. How long is the song? Because songs have gotten shorter and shorter on the radio. Right. And they're actually even speeding songs up now so they can fit more ads in. It's like crazy. But it's a good skill set to have. And if you get the Jim Riley book, you're golden.
What about like the feel? Like if you have a number chart, but it's a shuffle or it's a train beat like Rick played or something, does it tell you the feel?
You would probably write that down because you're going to get the paper with your coffee in the morning. Then everybody goes in the control room and meets the artist, and then there's always an entourage. There's the artist, the label guys, the songwriters, the security guy. There's always all these people. Who are all these people? But you'll go in and you'll listen to a recording of the demo, and that's when you can make your notes, shuffle, and you always have your little Tama rhythm watch or your little app on your phone where you can tap the tempo. And what I do nowadays is I kill 2 birds. The engineer is usually sitting there, and he's got that tap function on Pro Tools and be like, "Get the tempo for me." So he taps it, and he can get it down to a decimal point, like 20. Right. Hicktown was recorded at 21.5, but live we played at 123. We crank it up a beat and a half. So usually you'll make your notes, and then you go, boom, the click is on. Here we go, boys. And then you're off to the races. It's fun.
That's awesome.
Right
now,
on.
Rich, all of the Jason Aldean material too. When you play it live, are you playing it with a click?
Yeah, I would say that 99% of touring bands, especially in this genre, are playing to the click.
Yeah.
I would say even a lot of Americana acts, or just because, you're fulfilling a contract, you got to come in at a specific time, especially if you're an opening act, like, hey kids, we got 20 minutes. You got to do your 3 songs and be on and off, and also with the level of video content, we have so much video content. It's all got to talk,
Right. So you can like edit stuff together and it'll all be even tempo. We had Butch Norton on the show a little while ago, and he was talking about playing for Lucinda and how he's got his rhythm watch there on stage with him, and he, every song is counted off at a tempo, and
the rhythm watch is. What's so funny is how technology has changed the way we do things, and what the social expectations are, the musical expectations of being a modern drummer. Back in the day, we would just sing the chorus, like whether it was a big band, you think bum 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 bum. You think of the chorus, you think of the shout section, 1, 2, right? Or you think of the chorus on a pop song, and you would count the song off. And there was no reference, but the ability to have red light, green light, red, good. I'm getting it. I'm getting the feel and the flow in my head while that person is introducing the song. Now it's in my DNA. The band is looking at me, getting into my DNA. I'm singing the chorus. 1, 2, buzz, spada, boom, boom, green, red, green. Shut it off, And I've gotten I love the Tama Rhythm Watch. I have a friend of mine, Sammy Marandino, great New York City drummer. He programmed Word Up. He was that guy. And Sammy is amazing. Now he does Broadway, and he's like the hard-hitting pop guy on Broadway. So there's a lesson there. That guy continually reinvented himself. But he's got a way to take the Tama Rhythm Watch and put a start-stop pedal on it, which is really nice. He retrofits it. But I've gotten really good between back bass to just keep it close, and I'll just off, on, green, red, green, boom, you're having a good day, because you don't necessarily have to play with it. But it is an awesome thing, and a lot of times you can keep it to yourself. Say you're doing a showcase or you're doing a first gig with a group, and you're noticing that everyone's just taking off. These guys are on monster energy, and you want to tame the band a little bit. You can have a sub mix, going into your ears where no one else gets it. You've got it. You don't have to make an obvious thing about it, but it's just going to take the quality of the band up very, very quickly. And it can take 5 individuals that have never played music together and just help them find common ground. Like, my God, Will Ferrell's with us today. We got the most amazing cowbell player, and it just brings the band together,
Do you guys use tracks? Do you play the tracks?
Oh yes, we are one of the most conservative track bands. We have maybe a shaker and a tambourine on a chorus. We'll have some soft synths, just kind of like, and then of course we can't take Carrie Underwood on the road with us. So she's, all gorgeous behind us on the video walls, and her voice is in my ears. But there's a lot of bands, man, background vocals, second and third guitars, 100 tracks of stuff. What these crazy kids don't know. I sound like the get off my lawn guy, but the more tracks you have going out front, the smaller the band sounds. Like, that's why our band sounds different. It's just dudes playing their instruments, and there's a lot of air, right? It's less technology and more about that. But we just have the things that we need to, compete in the modern world.
Wait, say that again. The more tracks you're playing along with, the smaller the band sounds.
Absolutely. Out front, because there's all that sonic space that everything is competing for. It's like, oh my God, well, we got to have the hand claps, and we got to have the background choir, and we got to have it's just so much.
Right.
But what about that dude right there? What about just taking that guitar player and just cranking it?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But that's an expectation. It is an expectation to be able to play with tracks and make it sound like believable and human, and so in other words, being super tight with it. But my time feel is more of like an Aronoff or a Sean Pelton, where things swim. I'm Italian, I'm going to want to rush the chorus a little bit. It's very rare that if you find a drummer that has perfect time. I mean, who are these guys? John Robinson, Chris McHugh. Guys that can literally just take a click track and make it disappear for 3.5 minutes.
Right.
I don't think I was put on this earth to do that. It doesn't hold me back, because for whatever I'm bringing to the table, people are hiring me, just like everyone's, you guys are getting hired all the time. So we're all snowflakes, completely unique. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I'm so happy that I stopped doing in my 50s, which was the death by comparison thing. It's like, you can spend decades doing that, and boy, did I ever. And it can be very positive. It's like, I'm going to take from Russ Kunkel, I'm going to take from this, here's some Gad, boom, mix it all up, and then we come out like us. But now I'm at a point where it's just like, hey man, this is what I do, take it or leave it.
Right.
You know what? I love that.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. let me ask you this: how did you get to that point? How did you get to the point? Because we've had conversations on the show before about imposter syndrome, right? It's a real easy thing to fall into. How did you get over it? What did you do to just? I mean, I know having all the number one hits probably helps, but there's also that human element where you're like, I don't know, man. I still second guess myself. How'd you do it?
Yeah, playing this instrument requires just I think a healthy ego, just and a confidence in ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're musician, we're athlete, we're psychotherapist, we are, we got big brains, man. And drummers use both sides of our brains and our heart. And we're usually the friendliest and most outgoing person in any band. And we usually have some sort of a different skill set. Like how many bands do the social media or the marketing or the graphic design for their bands or the booking? We just have, I don't know, we have cool brains. But I just, once you get to the point where your story is corroborated by 5 people and then 10 and then 100, and then before you know it, oh my God, I'm 20 years in and somebody needs a drummer. Hopefully my name is going to come up, and then it does come up, and it's that whole thing, who's Rich Redmond? Give me Rich Redmond. Give me somebody that sounds like Rich Redmond that's cheaper. Who's Rich Redmond? And it's the cycle of life. And some people they sit longer at the various stages of the thing. But at this particular time in my life, I just know that God put me on the earth to play the drums. I make people's booty shake. I make people's songs come to life, and I make people smile. And ultimately, I make a difference in their lives. I know that I am supposed to be doing this. So everything that I do in my life, whether it's everything that I'm putting in my mouth, to the amount of exercise I get, to me keeping my chops sharp, to me just trying to be front of mind for a lot of people, thinking like a businessman, it's all serving me getting behind a set of drums again tomorrow and trying to do it at the highest level. And I think as long as you have that quality control and you have that passion,
Attention.
you the attention to detail.
No, intention.
Yeah, intention. Everything is intention, and especially the way I play drums. Every year that goes by, the drums get bigger, the setup is less, and I play less, but I work more. I figured that out. It was just like, wow, I could either be a fast twitch drummer, which I'm probably not born to be, because for whatever reason, the first thing that goes quickly for me is my fast down dagadung. My digga-ding, digga-ding, digga, my ECM or my up-tempo swing is usually the first, because it's a small trigger muscle that I don't work on a daily basis. I'm using more forearm, more of the Hollywood muscles. So I think God wants me to play eighth notes on the hi-hat and gigantic backbeats, and you know what I mean? So I had an epiphany early on. I was like, okay, I'm overeducated. I've played 20th century classical music. I've played Dixieland jazz, and I've learned my rags on the xylophone, and got my nice, boom, boom, boom on I got my stuff. I've experimented, but then I'm really drawn to this backbeat thing. So I was getting closer to branding when I said, I'm going to just focus on anything that has a backbeat, right? It could be in any language. I could tour the world playing a mean backbeat. And then it got even more hyper-focused when I realized that I'm just an overeducated rock drummer that's making a living in Nashville, bringing country music songs to life. And that's very pinpoint specific, but, not a genius. Like you guys heard this, from Kenny Aronoff, not a genius, but, show up every day and do the best I can. And I'm an expert at certain things, so just own it and be confident, not cocky. Cockiness is not being open to the universe, not being open to suggestions. And as a drummer, we really have to be open to suggestions. Hey man, you're too loud. You're too soft. You're dragging. You're rushing. I stay off the bell. You know what I mean? We're in a service industry. We are literally right next to the fry chef. I mean, the guy making fries. We're musical waiters. We got to give people what they want with a smile on our face. Mm-hmm. That is how we make a living. And then on top of that, the teaching is great because we can share all of our hard-earned experiences with our students and be like, you want to save 5 years on your journey, kid? Do this, 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 and this. Don't do this, 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 and this.
Right. Exactly.
Rich, there's a professionalism and a maturity to knowing how to play for the song as you're doing, and your success speaks for itself. And knowing when to lay back and cut notes out, you get what you pay for. And so big compliments to you on that. Are you finding that younger drummers are coming into the scene and I'll do the job for way less? Are we devaluing ourselves now?
You know what? I think that's going to happen for every industry. It's like, you know what I mean? And there's new people coming up. And I think in the home recording world, well, two places where I feel like there's a race to the bottom. In the home recording world, you're spending all this money to trick out your place. You maybe have to pay a rent on your place. Then you have to have the microphones, and it's a big investment. And then kids are going around charging $75, $100 a song. Don't do that. You're worth more than that, right? Yeah. So, and then the other thing is drum teachers. I see drum teachers teaching 60-minute lessons for $25. Yeah. And that's just bringing the whole art form down. Like the way I like to think about it is, if you're a masseuse, you get masseuse training. I don't know how long. What is the school? 6 months? Could be a year. I don't know. When they get out, they ain't making ever less than $80 for an hour. So they get paid $1 a minute with a handsome tip. So, and so we have tens of thousands of hours of experience, and some of us have higher educations. Either way, we're undercharging for drum lessons, as a general rule. $1 a minute, $1 a minute.
Yeah. And we're also, I'm starting to see a little bit of younger guys supplementing their income as players. So they decide they're a drum teacher and they're like, I'm going to give you a free drum lesson, give you a free hour. And I think that devalues us a lot. I mean, I guess everyone has to make a decision for what works for them and their career. But hey, man, I don't go to a restaurant and say, could I have a free sample of your food? Could I have a free steak?
Right.
I'll come back.
You should try it, Rick. I've had a lot of success with that.
I
No, but
think
it's the same thing about the gig scene here in the Bay Area. I mean, this jazz
Yeah.
gigs now pay the same that they did when I moved here 30 years ago.
Right.
$100 a man. You know?
how about those union gigs where they put you in the airport or whatever? Here's your $40. It's like my parking is $40.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I can't even get a soda. But this is a conversation I have frequently with younger musicians on the scene. I'm like, man, don't take that gig if it doesn't pay. All you're doing is giving them quality service for less money, and it makes it that them believe that they can pay little to get this quality. And then why should we pay more? You know.
Now, Rich, you've talked a lot about the session work and stuff like that in Nashville. And I know Jason Aldean is your touring band. That's what you tour with, been in that band forever. Do you ever go out on the road with other groups, like when Jason's down and he's not touring, or are you kind of like there for him and that's my gig?
Yeah, I'm always there for him. And it's gotten easier to be there for him because, when we started over 20 years ago, we were doing 200 shows a year. And then, as an artist's popularity goes, you might go down to 180 and then 160 and then 125. And we were at 80 shows for about 8 years and then 60. And now we're down to like 50 shows, which is very, very manageable. And they're usually compressed because sometimes artists will do, say, 30 shows a year, big venues, but they'll do it from January to December. So there's just not quite enough time to get other things happening. And now it's so nice. Jason compresses his tour from June to October. So pretty much every Thursday, Friday, Saturday for those months, I'm rocking with him. And then other things come up like television shows or charity events or knocking out a new record. We'll put out a new record every 1.5 years. He's got a new record coming out or something, sometimes 2 years. And the way country music artists tour, it's the tour that never ends. Like in rock world, you record a record, you go on a world tour, and then you're done for a long time till you create another body of work. Mm-hmm. Country artists, the fans are just so ravenous and they're just so loyal. You just go and go. And it's just an unbelievable thing. So that's home base. And it's beautiful. I get a PDF at the beginning of the year. This is where you're going to be, kid. You know what I mean? And then you just try to fill in and things around that. So I let the world know I exist, and I'm very open to doing dates with other people. But sometimes it's just, most acts want to have a dedicated person that they can rely on the whole year in and year out. So,
Rich, I want to ask you about another thing that you're involved with, which is motivational speaking. I saw on your website that's a service you provide. You've done a lot. You've got a whole program around that. Can you talk a little bit about that? How you got into it?
Yeah, man. So I started speaking at least 15 years ago, if not longer, as an extension of two things, probably my teacher's heart and the fact that I have the gift of gab. I just have an outgoing personality. Thank you, God. And then so I started speaking on this subject called Crash before I even wrote the book. And then along the way, I wrote the book. So if you guys are Jeff Bezos fans, you just go to Amazon and he'll lick a stamp. He'll send you the book. And then if you go on to Audible, I actually read you the book with these pipes of mine on your commute in the morning or on the treadmill. But it's just, I love acronyms. It stands for commitment, relationships, attitude, skill, and hunger. So 5 things that literally any person from any walk of life can use to attract more success to their life. And somehow I just have been lucky. Most everything in my life has come through tried and true relationships. And there was one individual that got me started with a company called Cisco. They basically are the plumbers of the internet. The whole internet would fall apart without them. And I've probably done 15 speeches for that company. And that led to things like, Microsoft and Hewlett Packard and Johnson & Johnson. So I just tell everybody I do everything from farmers to big pharma. And I just address the people that are in the room. It could be 5 people, it could be 500. And I use Crash as a pillar, kind of like a platform. So really what it is just kind of like a one-man show. So kind of like a very forward-thinking keynote address that has 0 PowerPoint and lots of sweat.
Cool.
Yeah, that's great. Good for you, man. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think a lot of drummers are going, a lot of that I've seen are going into that. And I think, like you said, we have the mindset for it. So that's, and you definitely have the personality for it. I mean, just get up there and wind you up and let you go. That's fantastic, man.
I love it. Yeah. We try to get the CEO up there or the COO or the CFO or something with a C. And then we give them a live drum lesson, in front of everybody, which is kind of like a light roasting. And, they walk away with some positive takeaways, some hard-earned wisdom nuggets. some stories, maybe a little bit of humor, a little, try the veal. And it's just fun, and it's, I might not be for everyone. Sometimes there was a European company that made like beakers and test tubes, and they were just very buttoned up, and they were like, we do not know if you're the collect. I was like, I'm probably not for you guys.
Beakers and test tubes.
I was like, I don't think I'm the guy for you. I'm a bull in a china shop, man.
There's something I haven't heard in a long time. Beakers and test tubes. That's.
I think that's the first time that's ever come up on our show.
That's actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm stealing it. That's my next album.
Beakers and test tubes.
I love it, man.
Right on.
Everybody, we're going to get out of here a little bit early. Jeremy has some stuff going on today that he has to do. Rich, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, man.
And,
what a pleasure. What a pleasure.
This is fantastic.
Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, man. You're welcome back anytime. And thank you for putting up with me. I'm suffering from namthrax. I've got namthrax, so I've been coughing and eating these stupid sucrets the whole show. So
it happens every time. It's a guarantee.
Every time.
Dude, it really does. So anyway, guys, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Rick, play us some drums, baby. Let's hear it.
All right, guys.